they couldn't afford the steak, they died. They were shot on the spot and killed because they couldn't afford the steak.
Listen up, people. That's right. It's time to listen to the sparks of bliss in your life. I'm your host and life coach, Caroline de Posada from Miami, Florida. And this podcast is an invitation to join me in upgrading our mindset, wellness, and relationships so that together we create a life that unlocks our bliss. Join me each week as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and the moments of clarity, or as we like to call them, los momenticos, that make the world a little more magical. Consider this your weekly dose of wisdom in your pocket. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Hey, listener, welcome to episode number 88 of Listen Up. And welcome to January 2026. It's a new month, a new season, and a new year. And I am so excited to be here with you today. Hopefully, by this Sunday, you are wrapping up your travels. Maybe you're getting back and bringing down the Christmas tree, getting the house back in order. Just getting ready to go back into a semblance of a routine, because I know that the holiday season can be very hectic for some people, and just clearing things out and getting a fresh start and going back into routine can be a very exciting experience when you have created a life that you love. I always think about this quote that I read a long time ago, which is create a life that you love so much you don't want to escape from. And in the past, I used to think about vacations as like this coveted thing. I just can't wait to get to vacation, and you can't wait to be away from regular, ordinary life. And while I still enjoy and look forward to vacations because I love the break in the routine, I love the time with my five fingers, I love the new experiences and making core memories, what I actually long for is to come back into my life, to come back into my routine. We actually got back from vacation last night, and when we walked in through the door, it was just such a cool experience to see all the kids. Everybody went to their rooms and like, my husband was like, home sweet home. And he looked at me and he said, we brought our home back home, because he always says that our home is where we are. It doesn't have to be in this house, but it was beautiful to like bring your home back home, and just to love your home, love your life, love like the routines that you have set up is a beautiful thing. So if you are getting back into routine, you are getting back into your life, and the thought of that makes you miserable, the thought of that makes you sad, I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about what about your life can you start adjusting to create a life you can't wait to come home to create a home you can't wait to come home to create an environment that is so wonderful that although you can dream of a vacation, you can look forward to the next one, you always long to come back to what you've built, because what you've built is so beautiful. So I want you to think about that. But that's actually not what we're talking about today. That was a little bit of a tangent. What we are talking about today is, if you heard my episode last week, then you know that our theme for January is adjust January. So if you are starting this new season, you are getting into the new year energy, and you need a little bit of a tweak, a little bit of an adjustment to your habits, to your identities, to your goals, to your home, to your relationships, whatever it is, this is the time to look at that. This is the time to assess, to figure it out, and to start making those tweaks and those adjustments. So that's what the theme is for the month. And I want to be talking about that this month because I'm doing that in my own life. I'm doing that in my business. I just had a meeting with my team about the adjustments I want to make in January, how I want to step into the year. I already chose my word of the year, which I'm super excited about. and just getting into that groove with those tweaks and those adjustments. Hey, quick pause from the episode to ask you, have you chosen your one word of the year yet? I am a huge proponent of having one word to anchor into the year and live with intention. If you need a little help, I have created a free guide to support you in the process with prompts and a video and all sorts of good stuff to help you choose your one word. So go to the show notes or just go to carolinedeposada.com/one-word. That will get you going to get you your one word of the year. Back to the episode, which again is not really what this episode is about. It's taking me a long time to get to the crux of the episode today. That's tangent number 2. They're not really tangents though. I'm warming you up to get to the real theme of today. And that is that oftentimes the most important adjustment you can make in your life is to adjust your perspective. Everything can change without your circumstances changing if you can change your perspective. Let me repeat that. Your circumstances do not have to change for your perspective to change in your life. And if you can change your perspective, you can change everything. That is what today's episode is about. And I learned that lesson profoundly this December when I went out to dinner for my birthday. So my birthday was on December 8th. And the weekend before that, I was attending a mastermind retreat to do some quarterly end of year, beginning of year planning for my business. My assistant, Fran, decided to come with me on this trip. And the deal was that while I was in the conference, she'd be in the hotel working. And then in the evenings, we would gather. I would explain to her what I learned. And then we would integrate it in the business and we would plan. And it was just kind of like a little mini Seed Up Co. retreat. Seed Up Co. is the name of my company. So we go on this trip, but of course, it's 2 days before my birthday. And Fran says to me, hey, listen, on Saturday night, I would like to take you out to dinner for your birthday, which I thought was a very nice thing to do. So she went ahead and made the reservations. She chose a place called Bourbon Steakhouse. So Saturday night comes, I'm getting ready to go to dinner. And at the conference were these 2 other ladies, one of them being my podcast coach, Allison Hare, and another one, Brittany Fox, who's a new friend of mine here in Miami. She also does really cool things with dinner parties, and she's become a community connector also. So she and I were together at this conference as well. So these 2 ladies want to go out to dinner with us, and they ask if they can join our party. We said yes, of course. And the 4 of us go to this Bourbon Steakhouse for dinner on Saturday night. Now, when we get the menus, we're in this like beautiful restaurant. We get the menus, and Fran says to me, Caro, this is your birthday. Feel free to order whatever you want. And I'm like, okay. And I start looking at the menu and I see this $70 steak that looks pretty good. And I was like, hey, friend, do you want to split this steak? I thought, I wasn't that hungry. We could split it and then it wouldn't be as costly for her. She was treating me. So she looks at the steak and she's like, yeah, I'm happy to share. Great. And then we're talking to the waiter and he's like, how do you like the steak cooked? And I said, well, I like it medium well. And Fran is like, well, I like it medium rare. So maybe we should just get 2 steaks. And I was like, well, no, I could probably just eat it the way that you eat it. I'm an adventurous eater. I don't have to follow strict rules when it comes to food. I'll try it medium rare. And then she was like, no, but it's your birthday. Like, you really should have it the way that you like it. And the waiter is now looking at me and being like, that steak is not a steak that you really should eat medium well. Like, you really should try it medium rare. He even suggested bringing like a stone to put the steak on in case it was too rare for myself, so he could bring it out medium rare for both of us, and then I could just put it on the stone, which I thought was a really nice thing for him to do. He was being really accommodating about the steak. So I was like, okay. But ultimately, Fran kind of like pushed me into ordering the two steaks, and I was like, no, let's order one. I will eat it your way. This is not that big of a deal. Again, I was trying to be accommodating. So we finally order the medium rare steak, and then we go about having dinner and ordering a soup and all the other things that we're going to order, a baked potato, the whole thing. So the steak arrives, and we're chit-chatting with our friends, having a great time. And when I put that steak in my mouth, I'm like, this is absolutely delicious. This is the best steak I've ever had. And I have to explain something to you. My husband is the best chef in the world. My husband loves a good steak. There's a store here in Miami. There's actually two, but there's two meat stores. One is called Josh's and the other one's called Lamello's. We go to Lamello's like every single week to buy steak because we love like good quality steak, right? And my husband makes it better than anyone. And everywhere we go, I'm always disappointed with the steak because it's never as good as my husband's. So when I put this steak in my mouth and I'm like, this is good, like really good, I was shocked. I didn't expect it to be that tasty. Fran agreed. I mean, we were just like enjoying the steak. And it was like three little cuts of steak. So it was like three little it was like a sampler, like three little sampler steaks. So we're eating and we're enjoying it. And it's so good that I take a picture of the steak and I send it to Orlando to share this with him because I'm thinking, first of all, I love Delray Beach. I love this steakhouse. This is the best steak ever. Like, we have to come back and eat this together. This is amazing. So I send him the picture. We keep having our dinner, having a great time. And then the waiter eventually comes, asks us if we want to split the bill or is everybody paying for themselves. Now, I already knew that Fran was treating me, but the other girls that were in front of us were like, well, what we'll do is they can split their bill and we'll split our bill, which I thought was kind of weird only because we had all ordered a baked potato. Like, we were all sharing the baked potato. So I was like, oh, how weird that we're not all splitting the meal like between the four of us. But it was fine. I mean, Fran was treating me and that made all the sense in the world. So the waiter came, he gave the bill to the two girls, and then he gave another bill to us. They paid it. And as we're getting up to leave, my husband finally responds to me and says, oh my God, that steak looks ridiculous. It looks like Wagyu. And I respond, it was ridiculous. It's called A5. He says, oh, the fattiness and the marbling give it away. And I'm like reading you the actual text that he wrote. And then he starts telling me about the slices on the left. And then we're going back. And then he's like, the one on the left is the one, fire emoji. I start saying my favorite one was the one next to the chili sauce. Like, we're going back and forth on the steak. And then he says, that's the highest grade of Japanese Wagyu. And I say, I want to come with you to Delray. And his response is, Gato, that's $1,000 plate. To which I respond, no, it was $70. And then I said, it was 3 different cuts, 4 ounces each. And my husband puts like a confused emoji and says, nah, only Japanese Wagyu can be grade A5. That's $50 to $60 an ounce. Now, when he says this, I must prove to my husband that I, in fact, ordered a $70 steak. So by this point, the ladies had been in the bathroom and then they were waiting for me outside because I was like texting with my husband. And I get up and I walk outside and there is a menu on the wall right in front of the restaurant. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Like, when you walk into a restaurant, there's like a menu on the wall so you see it before you go inside. So I go to take a picture of that menu. Fran is standing right next to me, and my two friends, Allison and Brittany, are behind me. And I look at the menu and I say out loud, you see, it is a $70 steak. To which Fran starts to chuckle and responds, oh, you thought it was $70 too. And then I turn to her and I'm like, what do you mean? And then the girl behind me, I don't know if it was Brittany or Allison, but one of the two says, Caro, that's not a dollar sign. That's a $570 steak. $570. When I look at this at the menu again and I zoom in and I adjust my vision to realize that it is not a dollar bill, that it is a number 5 on the menu. It was like a movie. Have you ever seen a movie where the person in the movie comes to a realization and then all of a sudden the whole movie flashes back in that person's mind and you start to relive the entire movie from this new perspective, like when you have had this new realization? That is exactly what happened to me. All of a sudden I go back all the way into the story and I start to relive the conversations that we had at the dinner table, the reaction of the girls. I started to see their facial expressions. Everything that I had kind of ignored before all of a sudden starts to make sense. And it occurs to me that they knew that I had ordered a $570 steak. I didn't know that I had ordered a $570 steak. And thankfully, neither did Fran. She didn't know either. We both saw $70. So everything starts to replay. And all I feel in that moment is shock and embarrassment. I am mortified. How could I have asked my friend, my assistant, this person who's being generous in treating me to dinner, to fork over $570 for a steak for me for my birthday? And like I did it like nonchalant, as if nothing had gone wrong, like it was the most natural thing on the planet. I couldn't even believe it. I was mortified. Now, Fran is cracking up because she had made the same mistake as I did. I looked at her in that moment and I was like, listen, I have to pay you for the steak. Like, I need to pay for this. And she was like, no, are you kidding me? It's fine. I'm like, no, like, I have to. Let me at least give you half. Like, I have to pay for this. And she's like, Caro, it's totally fine. I would have paid for it anyway for you. Like, it's your birthday. Like, enjoy. But like in that moment, everything changed for me. Literally everything changed for me. I felt even like a little sick to my stomach in that moment because I was like so shocked and appalled by my choice that I was like, so I text my husband and I'm like, oh my God, I am mortified. And his response is, I'm still laughing that you thought the 5 was a dollar bill. You need to carry your glasses everywhere you go. To which I responded, I was wearing reading glasses, which makes it even worse. And he writes back, it's called A5 LMAO. Left my ass off. To which I'm like, yes, I am a Wahida. I had no idea that A5 was that expensive. Oh my God. And here's the kicker. Okay. Here's where it's like, are you kidding me? From the moment that Fran got the bill and realized what she had done and what I had done, until the moment that I looked at that menu on the wall, she did not know that I did not know that that was a $570 bill. So for that period of time, it is very possible that Fran thought that I just had the audacity to order a $570 steak like if it's nothing. And in that moment, I realized nothing had changed except my perspective. You see, when I went back and I And I witnessed myself, like in the movie, I saw myself sitting in that restaurant, and I was talking to the waiter about the steak. And I was talking to Fran, and we were talking about whether we should get one or two. And we were exchanging information with the beautiful women that we were with. And we were talking about money, and we were talking about life. And all of a sudden, everybody had a different perspective at that table. Everybody's view of us was skewed by that number. But it was a different experience than the one we were having. So because we thought it was a $70 steak, we were relaxed. We ate the steak with no shame, no guilt, no worries. We enjoyed the steak. It was like the most delicious piece of steak. In fact, had I known that it was a $570 steak, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. Because when I got the steak, I would have been like, is this worth $570? What else could I be doing with $570? Imagine how many people I could feed with $570. Like, I would have been questioning that choice the whole time that I was eating that steak. Because what happens with us is we tend to enjoy what is familiar, comfortable, safe, until life throws us an extra zero. And suddenly everything changes, right? When we are stretched beyond our comfort, when we are stretched beyond our capacity, when we are thrown into something that's unfamiliar, all of a sudden we start to question. We step into worthiness issues, whether we deserve it, whether it's right or wrong. We attach meaning to it. That $570 steak was way more significant to me at that price tag than it was when I thought it was a $70 steak, only because a $70 steak, although still expensive, felt more reasonable. It was within my range of comfort. That was the only difference. And January is a perfect time to think about how you step into your life with expectations, safety, familiarity, thinking life is going to be a certain way, enjoying life because of what your expectations are, and how all of a sudden everything can change when there's a new reality that's brought to light, when there is a shift in your expectation, when there's something that stretches you beyond your capacity, when it's bigger than what you expected. But what if adjustment meant realizing that nothing is good or bad? Life is neutral, but for the meaning that we attach to it and the story we decide to tell. You see, $570 is just a number. For me, it felt impactful because I'm not familiar with ordering $570 steaks at dinner. But for somebody else, that might be insignificant. Or for somebody else, that might be the equivalent of $1 million. It might be so beyond your reach that you couldn't even comprehend the idea of being able to order that kind of steak, because you've just never been exposed to that kind of money. So the reality was insignificant. It's the impact that reality had on the person who thinks $570 is the equivalent to $1 million, or the person that thinks that it was a $70 steak instead of a $570 steak, or the person that looks at $570 and says, I don't understand, what's the big deal? It's just a steak. It's $500. For them, it could have been 5 cents and it would make no difference. The circumstance did not change. What changed is our perspective around that circumstance. Oftentimes you think that the reason your life is sad or stressful or overwhelming is because of your circumstances. But what if it's more about your perspective? What if it's more about the story you are telling yourself, the narrative you have created, the meaning you are attaching to those circumstances that are affecting your perspective? I remember I heard Wayne Dyer once say that there was somebody in his business, in his life, that was stealing from him. And he had been enjoying his life thinking everything was hunky dory until one day he looked at the books and realized that this person who he had trusted had been stealing from him all along. I remember him saying, my disappointment and my suffering did not come from the person stealing from me. And the reason I know that is because that person had been stealing from me all along. My suffering came from knowing that that person was stealing from me, which means that it was my perspective that caused the suffering. And it took me a really long time to understand that. I could understand it kind of conceptually, but I was like, yeah, but of course, if you don't know, then you don't know. Of course, you're not gonna suffer if you don't know. It was like a hard concept to wrap my head around until the steak. Because when I looked at the steak, I truly was in pure enjoyment of that steak when I thought it was $70. And what made that steak so significant was that I was able to live both realities in one moment. And then having to decide, was it still enjoyable? Was the experience still worthwhile? Was it still wonderful? Did the new price tag shift my experience and my enjoyment now that I knew it was $570? Well, if I allowed myself to start to discern whether it was worth it or not worth it, or if I allowed myself to go into worthiness issues or deserving issues or guilt or shame, then maybe I would no longer think that the steak was worth it. But if I looked at the price tag as something neutral and just the experience of the steak, I would have said, yes, it was delicious. It was wonderful. And it was a life lesson for me and for Fran. And such a moment of connection for both of us. I mean, this is a core memory. We are never going to look at Wagyu steak the same again. We're never going to not think of that night and laugh at what had happened. I can't tell you how many times since then I've thought back and thought, well, what if Fran really couldn't afford it? Like, what if the price, the bill had come and she looks at the bill and she like doesn't have the money, like she cannot pay for it? What would have happened? And I wonder at that moment, like she, thankfully she was able to pay for it and everything was fine. But what would have happened if she didn't have the money? And then that leads me to another train of thought, which is when something happens and it happens, you have no choice but to move forward. We couldn't uneat the steak. It was done. The deed was done. So when that bill comes, we have to put it on a credit card. We have to, I don't know. What do you do? What if we were to tell the waiter, like, we can't pay for it? Like, we just can't pay for it. Do we go to jail? I don't know. I really don't know what would have happened. I have no idea. But what I do know is when you are forced to meet a challenge, at that moment, you just get by the challenge. Like the ending of the story wasn't going to be, oh, they couldn't afford the steak, they died. You know, they were shot on the spot and killed because they couldn't afford the steak. Right? That's not going to be the end of the story. We would have had to figure out a way to make it work. My girlfriend this weekend was telling me that her dog got sick and she took him to the vet. And when she got the price tag for the dog, it was thousands and thousands of dollars. And all of a sudden, she had a decision to make. She was like, I wouldn't have used those thousands of dollars to go on a vacation or to buy a purse or to like splurge on something. But when it was my dog's life on the line, that money became a non-issue. I had it the next day. I produced it immediately. because it was my dog's life on the line. So then it begs the question, is it the circumstance or the priority? Can you afford it? Or are you going to pay for it no matter what you can afford because of the priority? Is it a luxury or a necessity? And if it's a necessity, will you make it work? Will you make it happen? Then it's really a question about priorities instead of money, what you can or cannot afford. And again, it takes me back to the understanding that all of life is just a series of circumstances. And we humans attach meanings to those circumstances. We tell stories about those circumstances. We decide how those circumstances are going to affect our lives. And they either produce joy and bliss or pain and suffering. They're either overwhelming and stressful or adventurous and exciting. So I know that there's going to be things that you need to tweak in January. I do too. We have to do the busy work of looking at our life, at our lifestyle, at the little things. What are the tiny habits that we can adjust? What are the small things that we can work on? What are the lifestyle changes we want to implement into our life? Those are little tiny adjustments. And we're going to talk about those next week. But before we can even get there, the big question that I have for you is, have you adjusted your perspective? Have you looked at your life and asked the question, even if my facts don't change, can my experience change? Maybe adjustment isn't about controlling the outcome of something, but rather softening your grip on the story you're telling yourself. Maybe it's about allowing yourself to find the spot of neutrality so that you can work from that place instead of just from what makes you feel safe, certain, or comfortable. Maybe that extra zero isn't as big of a leap as you think it is. It's just unfamiliar. And if you expand your capacity, if you expand your growth, if you decide it's time to rise, maybe that becomes less significant than you ever thought was possible. That's what I want you thinking about this January. That's what I want you thinking in 2026, is how do you shift your perspective? How do you adjust and figure out what is it that you have to let go of? What do you get to release? And what do you get to welcome that might be bigger than you ever imagined? What would you enjoy, truly enjoy, if you didn't have such a reality check on life? If you allowed your perspective to be your truth instead of always looking for evidence of reality. I used to do that all the time. I wanted to look for evidence of reality instead of deciding the truth with my own perspective. And life was less magical then. It was more confusing and overwhelming because realities are different for different people. And things aren't always what they seem. So looking for that reality can sometimes mean adopting somebody else's truth and not realizing that you have so much more power than you think to let that go. Okay, my friend, that's all I've got for you on this first week of January in 2026. I hope that this lands and that it really makes you think, and I will see you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful to connect. If you're loving this podcast, I'd love if you'd follow, rate, or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so, so much. And if you know of someone who could really use a voice like mine in their head, please share this episode with them. Now, if you're feeling called to keep the conversation going, come join us inside the Bliss and Up community on Facebook. It is a free space to reflect and root into intention together. You can find the link in the show notes or just search Bliss and Up with Caroline de Posada on Facebook. I'd love to welcome you in. Until next time, take care and keep noticing the sparks of bliss in your life.